Hello guys, welcome to the 7th installment of Anime Misconceptions. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about One Piece potential destructive capacity. Now, I understand a lot of people are going to look confused at this video and probably will be shocked by the results. But overall, I just want to create this one mission statement before I go on with the video, is that One Piece is not a simple series where it's like Dragon Ball where you power scale through numbers. We use statements and feats in order to articulate a proper product at the end of our calculations. Of course, you can use real life calculations for the actual fiction itself, but of course we have high end and low end feats, and we also have to take into consideration author's intent or the narrative of the story. And that's generally what I'm going for here, which was the last argument I used in Yu Yu Hakusho, with supporting details from background characters that overall make the entire statement a little bit more cohesive and coherent with the actual plot and the actual result. So I hope you guys enjoy this video, and let's begin. Okay, so primarily starting with One Piece as a series, destructive capacity has to be mainly coined in terms of attack potency. This is because environmental destruction is not as common as it used to be back in the early days. In series in general, when characters, of course, tip the scales, they tend to exceed way higher than normal types of attack potencies, and so they have to, of course, use less environmental destruction so that the plot isn't overall ruined or that something doesn't take away from the MacGuffin. But more or less, getting into the deeper parts, let's look at one of the major feats that we're going to be analyzing that will help us scale the later characters. So, besides the statement of Whitebeard being able to destroy the world, you'll see why this statement is a little bit more believable once you figure out characters like Don Chinjiao was capable of the splitting an Arctic continent. You see it right here and clear. That is exactly what the scan says, and the character in the background confirms it. An entire continent? Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking here. Is this hyperbole? Well, it would be if there wasn't any supporting details. We later see confirmation from Chinjiao again, saying there's a reason this continent has earned the moniker Frozen Bed of Treasure. Now, of course, we have to understand Ichiro Oda is not going to make a word appear 3 times if he's not trying to convey what the heck it is. So yes, this is a continent. You don't need an overhead bird view just to understand that. That is why they put the words there for the sake of the narrative, to explain to you this is a continent, so that way you understand how impressive this feat is. Now, for those of you lowballing and saying it's a hollow continent, let me just get rid of that by saying the characters here, of course it's hollow because it's holding treasure, but the overall surface area is about 15 to 20 feet using the pixel scale. Furthermore, characters with pickaxes and bazookas and many other items, even flamethrowers, could not actually adequately get through this entire ice continent. So it goes to show you the ice continent is harder than your average concrete. And if you want to use the Mo scale, then yes, this ice continent far exceeds concrete and can generally be compared to steel, or maybe even slightly harder because they couldn't even dent it. That's right, you heard it here, a continent that's durability is off the charts. So yes, this entire continent is made up of this, and for those of you who doubt the entire continent is, we have a scan right here from Chinjiao even confirming this continent is indeed made of crystal ice sheet in the anime, and in the anime he even says you wouldn't even crack it in 100 years. So yes, the word continent appears quite consistently, but let's take a look at what happens a few chapters later. That is right, you see the term continent again, and this time it's referring to a character or one of his students known as Sai. Why is this important? Well, in the fight versus Luffy, Chinjiao was originally using a weakened version of his head. When Luffy had actually reversed his effect, Luffy actually gave him back his original power, where a simple fatigued Don Chinjiao with a headbutt, or excuse me, a simple bow, was able to break the entire hallway corridor. Yes, without even trying after just losing. So yes, he did regain his old powers from when he was in his prime, because you could see here, when he fights Sai, much later, it says, your power has finally awakened, the secret technique of Hashoshukin has been passed down. Sai bestowed the name of Drill Dragon Drill Nail into your martial leg. Then he says, now that leg of yours ought to be able to shatter, not split, shatter, even the ice continent. That is what he says in the manga, and in the anime he says the same thing. I'm sure your leg can even break the ice continent into pieces now. So yes, Sai, awakened Sai, not the Sai that got one-shotted by Luffy, but the new and improved awakened Sai is now continental level, at least confirmed by Don Chinjao, the narrative of the story, and pretty much that's what the story is saying. That's the impression Ichiro Oda gives. That's what the narrative wants you to understand. When characters like Moria, who are now considered fodder, is able to one-shot an island, what makes you think a time-skip Luffy by this point isn't able to at least go to those continental ranges? Now, I understand an island and a continent are leagues away from each other, but let's also understand that the gap difference in strength is, of course, insane when it comes to One Piece, because characters were able to split islands far beyond that even before, or at least they were implied to be around those island levels. So what I'm saying here as a result is characters like Luffy, as course being much stronger than Sai, in his Gear 4 form could logically be large continental size, because Gear 4 is a far cry from his original gears, and that would pretty much make Doflamingo also large continental, Mihawk large continental, maybe even higher, and pretty much a lot of other characters in the series like Katakuri, Cracker, and Juice. These guys would all be around those large continental ranges. Seems a little extreme, but you also have to consider characters like, Hop from Dragon Ball Super is considered universal because she can fight base form Vegeta and Goku, who absorb the God Essence. I know, she doesn't look like a universal character, and he doesn't look like a continental character, but it's not about the looks, it's about the narrative and power scaling and what the series suggests is. So yes, guys, that concludes the video for today. Monkey D. Luffy is large continental, and that's pretty much irrefutable, because disagreeing with that is just going with your own headcanon and pretty much arguing against the narrative and Ichiro Oda's intentions and author's intent itself, which is a fallacious argument within itself, because that's really just you nitpicking and using your own headcanon. And again, Garp and Sengoku pretty much confirming that Whitebeard is able to destroy the world in his old age while he's sick. And yes, he did cause quakes around the entire planet. Pretty much does show you that Whitebeard should be around surface level planetary. And if you're surface level on a planet this large, you might as well just be planetary in general. I mean, look at Shanks. Shanks was able to equalize against Whitebeard. So I pretty much surmise the Yonko as being multi-continental to planetary levels based on what we've seen Shanks capable of doing. And since Yonkos are relativistic with one another, that's pretty much the impression that we can get from the power scaling surmises. Oh, and to quickly cover up one of the downplay attempts, they'll use Garp splitting 8 mountains, which they don't even realize. One Piece's mountains are probably a lot larger than our real world, and that Mount Fuji, for example, is larger than a freaking city when you actually look at it. It's insane. And then you can even look at characters like Luffy beating up the Noah, which of course Luffy was fatigued, bleeding, and underwater where his powers are weakened, so I mean that's unquantifiable, and the Noah can be more durable than Diamond or something. We don't actually know how hard the Noah is. All we know is that Luffy in the plot demanded him to go all out, and that's pretty much all there is to it. I mean, using this to lowball Chinjao or the statement is like me saying Goku can only lift up 40 tons, so I mean, yeah, he can't be planetary with that level of strength. That's ridiculous. I mean, you think 40 tons of force can, even if you say 100, you think 100,000 tons of force can break through a planet like King Kai with that much density at that high level of gravity? You should do more physics if you're going to argue that point, because breaking through this is like breaking through a star. But anyway, tell me guys what you think. Leave a comment, like, and subscribe and share. And eventually I'll be making some more videos on anime misconceptions. My apologies for being away for a while, but it's been some time, but I'm back. And ironically, I'm saying this: Atari out.